What the Tech is sponsored by Shutterstock, with over 30 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips. For 25% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use offer code WhatTheTech214.
What the Tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zan. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, my tag team partner, and a good friend of mine, Mr. Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing pretty well.
You look refreshed. Your video looks really good. Your audio sounds great. What could possibly go wrong today? We were off last week for people who don't know. If you missed the show, we were not here. Paul was in Vermont. He went away with his family. Things are more important than talking to me for an hour.
No, I would have done both, but apparently I also went back in time.
Apparently. What year did you go back to?
The connection up there was 1990-esque.
Which I want to talk about that. But before we get into what we're going to talk about today on the show, I want to thank our sponsor, and I want to thank Shutterstock for returning for 2014. We've been talking about Shutterstock for a good year now. And the reason why I really like Shutterstock is because I do websites on the side. I know a lot of people that do websites. One of my buddies, J Maverick Design, he does some phenomenal stuff, and he's always using Shutterstock. And before Shutterstock came as an advertiser on the show and on the network, I always asked him what he used it for, and he would always use it for stock photos for presentations. So a lot of people want logo ideas. A lot of people want concepts for products that they're doing. So he has a Shutterstock account. He goes on there, and he finds the image that he wants. So for people who don't know what it is, they have over 30 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, video clips, pretty much anything to elevate your project to the next level. And they have a great deal here for our viewers. 25% off on a new account if you go to Shutterstock.com and use offer code WhatTheTech214. That's WhatTheTech2 for February, 14 for the year. They have some great stuff, 30 million high-quality images. They're constantly adding more stuff there. It's royalty-free also, so that's the thing that really goes a long way. Nikki in our chat room added. They're adding 20,000 images per day, so there's always something that they're constantly adding. With a standard account, you get 25 image downloads a day. Doesn't matter what size you're downloading. It could be pretty much any size, and you only pay once for it, so that's a great part. You know, if all of a sudden the project needs to be in high def, guess what? You get the image perfectly sized over there for you. Shutterstock.com is the website. WhatTheTech214 is the offer code, and you get 25% off on a new account when you use our code. And let them know that we sent you. We're big fans of Shutterstock. We're always using them here at the network. I know a lot of people that use them, and you should too if this is what you're doing. Shutterstock.com, I want to thank them for supporting What the Tech. So to start the show, Paul, I want to talk about your adventure last week, because you went away. I didn't even know you went away. You sent me this frantic message saying, oh my God, I never told you I'm going away. I'm sorry.
Dude, I'm an idiot. Like we were going to talk late last week and didn't. I can't remember what happened, but I did the same thing. Like Windows Weekly came and went, and I never told Mary Jo or Lee or anybody I was going. Like I just completely zoned on it. And yeah, I don't know. I think I was trying to block it out because this winter has been so horrible snow-wise, and this year, for the first time ever, we're like, let's go skiing on vacation.
Let's go somewhere colder.
Yeah, like last year we went to Cancun,
Yeah.
So yeah, we went up and enjoyed the snow.
How was skiing for you? Because I went skiing over the weekend, and I had a phenomenal time.
Yeah, it was great. It was really good.
See, I like skiing. I love it, but I feel it for days. Like my lower back is in shambles right now. Like I'm barely functioning like a normal human being. I could barely just walk to get the mail.
I hurt my back sitting down at lunchtime to eat lunch on the couch, and I hurt myself more today than I did the whole time I was skiing, so I can't really explain the crazy kind of out of shape that I am, but it was fine, actually. I was tired, but it was I wasn't dying or anything. It was good.
My wife at times says that I am resembling a former professional wrestler, where there's some muscle, but it's like over the fat. I've taken the body of the Iron Sheik at this point.
Right.
At a young 30 years old.
Sadly, I have the body of Andre the Giant. So.
See, I knew we could push wrestling into this conversation somehow. I got the WWE Network, and I just wanted to touch on that. I know a lot of people are now wrestling fans, but I am, and the WWE Network.
So screw you guys.
So screw you guys. I'm going to talk about it now. The cool thing about it is that it is the first of its kind, really, for a brand to take all their content, plus more stuff they're doing, plus their archives, put it online for $9 a month, and pretty much let anybody watch anything that they want at any given time, plus have live content. That's the difference between a Hulu or a Netflix and what the WWE is doing. They have live content as well. Yesterday was a launch day, and they had problems. Obviously, they have hundreds of thousands of people signing up for this service. But the bigger thing here is that we always talk about cord cutting. I'm one of the people that wants to totally eliminate cable, never use it again, and never look back, because there's probably like 5 things that I watch and everything else is a waste. I know Paul's one of those people too, where you would rather watch the content when you want to watch it. I think we've spoken about this. Do you really ever watch live content?
Well, besides sports?
Besides sports, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes. Oftentimes, though, what we're watching live is something that's recording, and it just so happens that we're around, so we'll watch it, at the time. But no, we don't. Well, no, there are exceptions. I mean, we get to, the kids and us will watch like The Walking Dead on Sunday or something like that. But when it's on.
Yeah, but I mean, it's rare.
Not like it used to be.
Yeah. So for me, I'm watching everything on Netflix. Like right now, I just watched the first episode of House of Cards, and it's 10 times better than anything else that's on cable right now. But this is the problem with this. Until sports looks good on the internet,
right?
The cable companies are not in trouble. It looks awful. Watching.
Well, how about this though? So this is actually difficult. No, actually, this doesn't solve it. Okay, I was going to say it's difficult to set up, but you can get an antenna and you can get a local HD TV signal, and you can watch local sports.
You can watch, yeah.
But not what you're talking about.
Not what I'm talking about. No,
yeah.
Like the wrestling stuff, it looks like you're watching a sporting event on the internet, and it's a weird frame rate issue.
Yeah, it's a streaky kind of blocky, not quite.
It doesn't look right. I mean, it just doesn't look right. And for most people, you know what? You're not going to notice a thing. But for me, because I'm out of my mind, and I think a lot of people that are buying this are enthusiasts that are buying it, they're going to notice this too. It looks weird. It's like watching, I watched the Super Bowl a couple years ago online. It looked weird.
Yeah.
It just doesn't look right. And it's the same effect. And number 2, it's 720p, and 720p on a bigger screen TV looks awful. But between the 720p issue which I could deal with, but this weird streakiness and the frame rate issue, it really started to bother me. And I'm thinking, wow, you know what? The cable companies are not in trouble at all. If you're a hardcore sports fan of any kind, you're not going to abandon watching it on cable to watch it,
Yeah, but you
online.
know what? A hardcore sports fan is not necessarily the mainstream and is the type of person who would be, paying for that season's package you can get for like the NFL Network or the NBA, whatever they call that, or, all the different sports have those kind of things. So, maybe that's just one of the last groups to
and they all suffer from it. The NBA has the same problem. The NFL has the same problem. MLB has the same problem. They all have the same problem. When you watch a sporting event online, it looks like you're watching it online. And that's the separation between cable and the internet. And that's what needs to be. I mean, listen, you got another year or 2 of this.
I was going to say, it's not going to be that much longer because we don't have this on the notes today. But, when Facebook bought WhatsApp, one of the big questions was last week, why would they spend so much money for this, right? But then they make this announcement this week where they say, well, right now we have text messaging, but we're going to be adding IP-based, internet-based phone calls as well. And you can see where everything is going to start occurring over a data line, that they'll add video calls, of course, and that's how the future will go. It's just all going to be data. And so this kind of stuff, It's going to happen. I mean, did you, for example, during the Olympics, did you watch any on-demand stuff on your cable system? Did Fios have that? Where you could watch recaps?
I didn't see it at all. No, I don't watch any of it.
Because that stuff would be IP-based.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even I'm trying to think if it's not there as much on the on-demand stuff as it is on the live programming.
Right.
Let me just say that. The on-demand stuff does look better, but it still looks like it's on the internet. You know, it's a much lower bit rate than what you're normally getting on television. I think TV, you're getting like 15 to 20.
And you get these occasional spazzes where it kind of snows, you know?
Yeah.
With the whole thing blocky, pixelates, which I find irritating. But
yeah, I mean, listen, we're almost there. I think this is a great step in the right direction. But, like, for me, like, I order WrestleMania every year. And I have a big party in my house. Like it's a bunch of my friends from like childhood that we were never able to let go of this crazy thing that we like. And you know, it's a lot of fun. The wives come, everybody's here. I'm probably going to still have to spend that $70 for the pay-per-view because I can't get over that issue. Like it bothers me.
Right.
So that's just my issue. I just wanted to talk about it because a lot of people have been asking me over the last week, like, "Hey, you're going to talk about it on the show?" I really wasn't because I don't really discuss wrestling on this show. I have a show for that on Thursdays, but I just wanted to give like a little recap of, you know, what the experience was like. And I know a lot of people are looking into
it's a general technology discussion. I mean, I don't really watch wrestling, but I get it.
So what I do want to talk to you now, Paul, about, forget about the skiing, forget about the wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I want to talk to you about the Nokia X.
All right.
A lot of people are excited about this kind of device. We're probably not going to get. We're not going to get it here in the U.S.
We are not going to get it here.
I'm
not in North
sure.
America. Not in. I think it was Japan and Taiwan, maybe. So that's. I mean, that's interesting. So it's for very specific parts of the world.
It's what was it? It's Japan and Taiwan, and that's it.
I think so. And the United States are not getting it. I'm sorry.
Oh, then I'm not getting it. Yeah.
What it's aimed at is China, India, the Middle East. Emerging markets in
South America,
South America and Africa, and Asia, China, you know,
emerging markets.
I said China twice. Emerging markets. What I would call, but also interestingly, Europe, right? I think there are the haves and the have-nots in Europe, just like we have them here in a way. I mean, so I think a lot of Eastern Europe. Southeastern Europe, Southern Europe, you know, maybe could be included in that list too. So
essentially, it is a budget Android smartphone.
Yeah.
Right. I mean that's essentially all
Android,
that it is.
It's AOSP, right? It's the Android open source project. So it's not the full. You know, I think we're kind of mincing terms a little bit, but I think when people say Android, what they're thinking of is full blown Android, like. It sounds like a disease.
He came down with full-blown Android the other week.
Yeah, full-blown Android. Oh, I'm sorry. Jeez, you don't just have AOSP. It's Android, the OS, plus Google Play services, right? Apps and services and maps.
Which, I mean, that's really interesting that they're using... but a lot of the services, they're using Microsoft services and not Google services, right? The cloud services.
Well, they have to. They can't. Yeah. That's the point. AOSP is no Google stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know.
It's pretty.
There's some second-rate stuff going on here that I'm a little concerned about. But I don't know. I've read some interesting defenses of this, and I get it. But my central issue remains, which is simply that I don't understand what was wrong with Windows Phone that would have made this impossible. For example, if you're going to tell me that Microsoft is going to charge too much for the Windows Phone license, and that's the deal breaker. Microsoft is going to own Nokia sometime in less than 30 days, probably. And Microsoft doesn't charge Microsoft for a Windows Phone license. So that makes no sense at all.
Now, was this like a legacy project that they had started and they just never decided to kill off?
So that's actually unclear. And the interesting thing about this is that this project, which was like codenamed Normandy, has been rumored for a long, long time. And when it first appeared, a lot of people assumed that what it was a phone that they were working on before they signed up with Windows Phone and Microsoft, and that they were originally looking at Android, which is one of the things they did look at. As it became clear that this was, in fact, a more recent kind of a project, Some people speculated that clearly it must be a replacement for Asha because this System 40 based thing that they have on the low end, which they sometimes refer to as a feature phone and sometimes refer to as an entry level kind of smartphone.
Yeah.
Maybe it could replace that. And that to me kind of made some sense. But then it came out and it was this thing no one anticipated, which was yet another smartphone platform.
Looks like Windows Phone.
Looks like a little bit like Windows Phone. It sits kind of logically between Windows Phone, the Lumia lineup.
But Paul, if you held this phone up, right? If you held this phone up and you held up the 520, for example, to somebody, they would think it's the same exact phone. Essentially, they would be like, "Oh, it's the same platform." Like that.
Well, okay. So it depends on where in the world you are. So here, I think that would be yes. I think if you held up the phone, someone would say, "Oh, look, it's an iPhone 5C," or it looks like one of those Lumia devices. Maybe. But depending on where you are in the world, if we don't get them here, so we have to go just look at pictures of them on the web. But if you go look at some of the Asha phones, what you'll see is those phones look a lot like this too. They have kind of a common styling. They have that polycarbonate shell, bright colors, that kind of thing. I just don't. What I keep coming back to is I don't understand why they need this other thing. And I don't get what was wrong with Windows Phone. I don't feel like that's been answered to any satisfaction, why they couldn't have just gone with Windows Phone.
Do you think this is that weird market that wouldn't buy a Microsoft product, and now they're trying to push it that way? I'm just trying to figure out why they wouldn't just. They already have an emerging market phone, right? They have the 520. It's pretty inexpensive. This phone is not cheaper than the it's not cheaper than the 520, 525. You're talking about $125 to $170.
So we often talk about how here in the United States you can buy like a Lumia 520 for $99.99. And at some points during the holiday season, it was less than that. That is a contractless phone, which is good, but it's also not. It's also carrier locked, which is bad in these markets. And so one of the features of these phones is that they support dual SIMs. And the reason they do that is so people can more easily switch between carriers, which I guess is very common in some of these, I don't want to call them third world, but kind of emerging market type places where connectivity is very expensive still, and that people kind of buy them in micropayments maybe or on the fly. And they often want to switch when there's a good deal because they're not locked into a 2-year contract like we're so used to here. And they switch and they go back and forth. And it would be like switching between Verizon and AT&T here where it's completely incompatible networks and you can't just swap out a SIM. You literally need that other kind of SIM card in there in this case. So that's how they do that. It is a different situation. So these phones, I would assume, are in fact unlocked and just full unlocked, which would permit this kind of
pay as you go,
So a fully unlocked Lumia 520 is actually more expensive than $99.99, as it turns out. I think you can get one for, $140 or something like that. It's somewhere in that area. So these phones are a little bit less expensive than the Lumia 520 is today. But again, if Microsoft will be selling this thing soon, knowing that this was coming down the pike, knowing that Microsoft was buying them,
why do this?
It seems like they could have had this conversation with, because they did have a conversation. I mean, Microsoft knew this was coming. Is there some kind of a deal you could cut us on this? It seems like even if Microsoft wasn't buying Nokia, if Nokia came to them and said, "Hey, we're the single biggest Windows Phone licensee in the world by far. We're like 90%. We're looking at doing Android on the low end. Could you give us a deal?" Microsoft just announced a deal for a new class of PC, which, by the way, is something else we should talk about, where the license cost for Windows is less than 1/3 the normal cost.
Which I believe 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, that's what we were discussing. If that's what they might possibly do,
right?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you do that for phones? In other words, if Nokia is going to sell these phones in emerging markets for super low prices, why wouldn't you give them a crazy deal on Windows Phone and even potentially let them muck around with the UI a little bit and make it even simpler, like they've done on the X device? But again, I can't. All I can do is speculate. I don't know why they did what they did. I don't know why they didn't do what I'm suggesting. I just know they're doing this crazy thing, and I just I don't know. It's interesting.
It's a little weird, but like the other question is like, how much support is there going to be for something like this, right? Are we talking about like a one-off shot, like the Kin? Like, is this going to be another Kin type phone where it's around for about 6 months to a year, and after that,
that'll be up to Microsoft. So,
yeah.
If this thing disappears immediately, it's going to be because the decision was like, we don't want to do this. Some people have argued to me, and there's an effectiveness to this argument, that Microsoft is already writing apps for Android. Many apps will simply run on this AOSP platform, right? Because as long as you're not using Google APIs, which I think Microsoft by and large is probably not, they'll work fine. And they're already making those apps, Skype, Outlook.com, OneDrive for Business, et cetera, et cetera. So, yes, I mean, I guess that stuff. And when you think about where money is being made on this device from Microsoft's perspective, a one-time sale to some guy in Mongolia is not going to help you a lot when he just spent $75 on a phone and you're never going to hear from him again. But if he's using your services, you could see some money from that guy in the future. And maybe it's more important that Microsoft services are on there.
I guess essentially for them, right? I mean, that's what they would want to be selling as a services portion of it. Why don't you go into the pricing change, how the licensing is dropped? Because that's really interesting.
Yeah, and this story has not been reported very well, aside from me. No, I mean, in other words, I don't mean like I don't know how else to say that. In other words, what I mean by that, though, is this is actually kind of an interesting story because Microsoft has a history of responding to threats on the low end. They did it with the netbook first, right? And the way that Microsoft responded to the netbook threat, because netbooks originally ran Linux, was to offer something called, they invented a new version of XP. They called it XP Starter Edition. And they said XP Starter Edition can only run on certain kinds of machines. Very little RAM, very little storage, very tiny screens. Netbooks. But if you meet those qualifications, we'll give you this Windows license for next to nothing. As Windows evolved, though, of course, Vista came out, and Vista was too big for a netbook, so they continued offering XP Starter Edition. And then finally, they came out with Windows 7, and Windows 7, of course, would run on the netbook. Again, same thing. You can get the special cheapo version starter just for netbooks, and that's how. And they undercut Linux. They got it out of the personal computing market for good.
Oh, totally, yeah, totally.
So now the same thing's happening again, right? There's kind of a dual prong threat that's occurring today because in the PC space, there are these things called Chromebooks, which sell for about $300 a piece. I.e. netbook class pricing. And then there are tablets, right? And tablets run the gamut from mini tablets like the Kindle Fire HDX, the iPad Mini, whatever, all the way up to these full-size tablets. People are buying these devices instead of PCs in some cases. So how does Microsoft respond to this? Because the one of the biggest costs to a hardware maker, HP, Dell, Lenovo, whoever you are, is this Windows license, estimated to be about $50 a pop. It's the reason they put crapper on those computers to eke out a small profit.
Yeah.
The way it's just so bizarre, but except that they've done it before, and this is the thing that people have missed. They're not lowering the price of Windows. What they're doing is introducing a new Windows license only for a super low-cost kind of computer. It's basically the netbook all over again. There are no limitations, though, on the size of the screen, the amount of RAM, yada, yada, yada. The limitation is on the cost. That computer has to cost $250 or less. If it does, you can get Windows for next to nothing. So here's the trick. Right now, you cannot find a computer that costs $250 or less. There are none. The cheapest computer on the market is probably $279, $299. It's one of those Dell blue light specials you get at Best Buy with like a
nothing great
ream of paper and a a 1999 printer or something. In order to qualify for this deal, PC makers will have to make new cheap hardware. I heard you beep.
There's the box just beeping.
These new computers will not have to meet the hardware compatibility tests that Microsoft imposes on the more expensive Windows license. Meaning
that's not that good.
That right? They're going to be really unreliable, comparatively speaking. This is going to be like the Taiwanese, I bought it on a street fair in Brazil kind of quality level. It's going to be.
I mean, you're right. It's like the netbook all over again. I mean, you remember those $99 netbook just sitting on the shelves in like CVS.
So, confronted by a new kind of competitor at the very low end of the market, Microsoft has responded by allowing Windows to be bastardized onto these stupid, really super cheap hardware. And the result is going to be something kind of horrific, I think. I don't think we're going to be able to rely on, because this is not going to be, I mean, yes, HP might ship one, Dell might ship one, Lenovo might ship one. But the other companies are going to ship one of the companies that sell tablets in CVS today that you've never heard of, these no-name Chinese and Taiwanese and whatever brands that now are going to be able to license Windows for nothing. And maybe they will undercut the Chromebook. Good for them, but...
Well, on your website, I was looking, I can't find it now, but I saw today or yesterday there was an HP that was kind of competing with the Chromebooks, but it was Windows.
Yeah, I tweeted it.
What was that?
So there's a $400 HP laptop that's coming out. Most Chromebooks cost about $299. So this one is $399. It's an 11-inch screen. You know, it's got kind of fun colors and all that kind of stuff. Neat. So why would you spend $100 more on this thing, aside from the fact that it's Windows, which I actually think justifies it just fine? It does two things that you can't do on a typical $300 Chromebook. One, it has a multi-touch screen, which is kind of amazing. And two, it's a transforming device, meaning that lid folds over the back, you can see on a Lenovo Yoga. That means you can use it as in a stand mode. You can use it as a tablet. You can fold it over all the way. You can use it with the keyboard on the bottom in kind of like a presentation type mode. So if you're on a plane and you just want to watch a movie or whatever. So for $100 more, you get a bunch of extra stuff: the transforming capabilities, multi-touch screen, and Windows, full offline, all this wonderful stuff that comes with Windows. So I'm not saying this is like a game changer, but this is another way where PC makers can kind of, Windows, I guess, can compete.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's always going to be a premium because obviously there's licensing costs and all that stuff involved with Windows, but really $399 and you're getting something that's pretty competitive to $299. Probably a little bit more competitive than what you're getting with a Chromebook.
Granted, I think a lot of people who buy Chromebooks do so because of the cost, and so it's fair to say that $400 is still more than $300. But I think it's not like going $999 for an Apple laptop. I mean, the value is there. I think the people see that. I think we'll also see these $250 and cheaper machines potentially eat away at the Chromebook. Although I think they're going to do more damage to Windows than they do to Chromebook. But.
So Microsoft also announced a bunch of partners for Windows Phone.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, doesn't it make sense to take the Apple route as far as how what they do with Windows Phone and say, okay, Nokia is the manufacturer of Windows phones. These are premium devices. We know what we're getting. The experience is going to be the same across the board. This is what we're putting out, rather than teaming up with LG and Samsung and whoever else.
Right.
I mean, I know that they want market saturation, but I don't think they're in the position to kind of. I don't know if it's going to make a difference for them to team up with all these different, OEMs.
Well, okay. So the interesting thing about that announcement, so there's 9 new OEMs. They're not all actually completely new. LG was a previous licensee.
LG, Lenovo, Foxconn is one, ZTE.
Right. Well, a lot of Chinese companies there.
Chinese companies, yeah.
Indian companies or companies that target those markets as well. And so they're going after the emerging market thing. They're going after the same market as Nokia X. And so I have two theories here. One is that even though they have not announced it, it's pretty obvious that Microsoft did in fact drop the licensing costs on Windows Phone. And the reason that's obvious is that for the past 3 years, it's been Nokia, Samsung, HTC. And then, every once in a while, someone new would come on board. We got ZTE had come in at one point. LG was in for a little while and left, that kind of thing. So this market hadn't changed a lot. Why all of a sudden was Windows Phone super attractive to these companies? Microsoft has not added a bunch of new features for emerging markets to Windows Phone. Why would they announce this now? I think it's pretty obvious that even though they haven't announced it, they've dropped the cost. That's why, because when these companies want to sell to the markets they want to sell to, they're going to do the same thing that Nokia is doing with Nokia X. They're going to have the same kind of basic feature sets. I mean, we know that Windows Phone 8.1 will support dual SIMs, for example. I think they lowered the price. I think they basically did answer the Nokia X question. And then all of a sudden they signed up a bunch of new partners as a result, because all of a sudden this thing's really cheap. And that makes me wonder now, if they can sign up all these guys. I mean, aside from the fact that Nokia falling apart and, spinning off into something different would be awful for Microsoft and for Windows Phone, it kind of begs the question, do they need Nokia anymore?
There's two sides to this, right? Because if you follow the trend on Mobile World Congress, it's not about the U.S., North America, Europe. It's some Europe, but it's mostly emerging markets. Everything that we're seeing is for emerging markets. BlackBerry had an announcement saying that we're going into emerging markets. Yeah. A little late to the game, but I think the money is going to be outside of North America for these companies.
Well, right. So, yeah, I mean, I wrote this in an editorial today. I'm not an economist, right? But I think just speaking basically, we could all agree that you can go into a market and sell low volume, high margins, high prices, right? You can go to a market and sell really huge volume and make tiny margins. And either way, you could arrive at kind of the same basic amount of money. So it's possible for Windows Phone to be successful if they sell a lot of it and they only make a little bit of money per unit. That's not, it's not a guarantee, but it's certainly a possibility. So you have to go where the market is. And for Microsoft, for better or worse, with Windows Phone especially, that market is not the iPhone buyer in the United States or France or the UK. It's emerging markets. It's people who don't have a lot of money to spend. It just is. I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
When we talk about North America, I mean, the market right now, the mobile market, the market share is, chopped up. And I don't see that there's not going to be this pivotal moment where, iPhone, Apple takes over the entire market because they released another 2 phones with different screen sizes. I don't think we're going to see those major shifts anymore. It's kind of going to level off, and Google's going to have a piece, and Apple's going to have a piece, and the third is going to be Microsoft. But in India, for example, when it's most probably Android is controlling the entire market, right? I would imagine for the smartphone market.
In India?
Yeah, I would imagine it's Android.
I'm not positive. Yeah, I don't know. But
any emerging market, it's generally Android because they're inexpensive, they're cheap, and there's 5,000 of them on the market. That's why it's so important to enter China and go and get into India.
What they're not going to be doing is spending $700 on an iPhone.
No, they're not.
They may aspire to that, but what they're probably going to buy is some cheap Android thing that kind of looks like an iPhone or whatever, because that's what they can afford. I mean, it's just the reality of the situation.
By the way, it's developing markets. That's the new term, developing markets, not emerging.
I wrote I don't know if this escaped my editor's iron grip, but I wrote a line about these kind of markets, and I described them as third worldy, in the sense, because I mean, there's different ways to refer to them, but
that actually is very similar to what I wrote. I had to, for Holocaust literature in high school, I had to do an essay on Jacob the Liar, the movie, and I described the main character as an Anne Frankish escapee.
Anne Frankish.
And it's become a big joke amongst my friends. But I mean, it is interesting to see where the market is headed. The other thing I think we're going to see a lot more in these developing markets, it's not these cookie cutter Android standard, phones that are being released. We're going to start seeing more things like what Nokia is doing with Android, where they're kind of evolving it into this look and feel of what they want. And I think we're going to start seeing that here too. But that's an interesting thing that we're going to notice happen in the next year or two, where people understand that you could get the same experience all across the board on every single one of these phones sitting in Verizon and AT&T. But if something like that Nokia phone comes on the shelf, and I'm not saying exactly Nokia phone, but something similar to that, where it's a very unique experience and it's still running the apps that you know how to use, that may be a little bit.
Yeah, but it's a little more complicated than that, right? Because the safety of a real Android phone, like a non-AOSP phone, is you get the Play experience stuff, you get the store, you get the Google apps, services, you get maps, you get search, you get Now, all that stuff. You're not going to get any of that on the Nokia X or on any other phone that's like that. The Kindle Fire tablets are this kind of device. So you can't just release one of these things. You have to have some plan for a store and for content and all that kind of stuff. Now, if you are I hate to say, it's like hard to say this without sounding condescending. I mean, if I'll keep using Mongolia as an example because I'm praying to God no one is listening from Mongolia.
That
But if you
one
were
guy.
living out in the middle, the barren part of Mongolia, and you're like a sheep herder or something, maybe getting access to the latest Angry Birds app or whatever from
Not a priority.
the Google Play Store is not a huge priority. No. So
Yeah.
for those people, that's fine. But the reality is for kind of semi-mainstream use, you have to be able to provide those services, the store and whatever. And so obviously Amazon is a store. They can do that, and they do. And Nokia has a store, and they can do that, and they do. Nokia also has an excellent developer program, and actually Amazon does now as well. You have to have this infrastructure in place to do this kind of thing. And it's not something anyone can do. Bob down the street's not going to do it. It's, Nokia can do it. Amazon can do it. Microsoft can do it.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone. So I guess it depends. Yes, there's certainly a market for some people. They have these stores that are around. There's one in Russia. I'm sure there's a bunch of them.
I mean,
That guy in Mongolia could use that store.
You could use the Amazon store, right?
Well, yeah, probably. Assuming it ran on just a stock AOSP device that you could install it.
It should, and I don't know if there's. Do they have any licensing as far as using it on a?
I don't know.
AOSP device.
I will say though, again, this is kind of a first world problem, but Amazon, the stock Google Play Store has more apps than any other store. The Apple Store is close behind. These things have millions of apps, or whatever the number is. The Amazon Store has a tiny portion of what Google and Apple have. It's much smaller. Microsoft Store, the Windows Phone Store, which is now 3.5 years old, 245,000 apps. It's much smaller. The Nokia Store that's going to run on these devices, this Nokia X lineup, much smaller, right? Even still, they probably have tens of apps or hundreds of apps or whatever it is. I don't know what the number is, but something small.
I think you said it once on the show. You said it's not about the quantity; it's about the one app that you need in that store.
Yeah,
and I think the thing about Amazon is that Amazon has a much smaller, app store than the marketplace or the Play Store, but they are far more strict as far as what they let in.
But it's no excuse if it doesn't help you if the app's not there.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I can tell you about Amazon, because I've looked at this, is I've looked at like the Microsoft mobile apps that are available on iOS, and they differ a little bit between the iPhone and the iPad. What's available on Google Play, which is a lot, and what's available on Amazon, which is next to nothing. There's only a handful of those apps. And so even though you got to remember that the Microsoft apps are so excited about getting on this Nokia thing are no more likely to run on this than they would on the Amazon store. So obviously Microsoft and Nokia are close partners and soon will be Microsoft. And so that could and will happen, but it's not a definite, you're going to get Wordament or whatever the app they call, whatever the Microsoft wants.
So I'll give you an example. I have the Amazon App Store on my phone, and I'm searching for Instagram. It's not coming up.
Well, yeah.
Everything else comes up. Twitter comes up. Facebook comes up. Pandora comes up.
Search for a Microsoft app that would be on there. Like I think actually Wordament is on there, but I don't remember which one. Maybe just search for Microsoft. But find a Microsoft app and then find other apps from Microsoft. And it's not that many. If you go to the Play Store, it's a lot. If you go to the iPhone store, it's actually even more.
Xbox 360 Smart Glass.
Yeah, so you probably get both
Wordament.
Smart Glass apps. Wordament,
Yeah. Xbox One. Bing.
Okay.
That's about it.
Yeah. There's no Office Mobile. There's no OneDrive.
Oh, actually, wait a minute. Is this it? Office Excel 2007? No, it's not them. Somebody else released it. Yeah, so remote desktop client, is that a Microsoft one or is that a third party? No, third party.
That's third party. There is one stuff.
So really not much.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So in other words, this is the kind of experience. So for people here in the United States, this Nokia X thing is a non-starter. It's they're not going to sell it here anyway, but that's part of the reason why. We really care about apps. We have slightly different issues than the guy from Mongolia. That guy probably cares about communicating in some way, whether it's over phone or texting or whatever, some kind of messaging thing, more than he does about playing a stupid game or Instagramming himself with his, shepherd script. I'm being an idiot here. I don't even know what these people do. But you know what I'm saying? completely different concerns.
Have we decided that everybody's a sheep herder in Mongolia
know.
right now? That's using a phone.
I know there are actual cities and civilizations in Mongolia. I apologize to anyone from that area. But I'm just trying to make the difference between someone with 2 SUVs and the white picket fence and 2.5 kids in the United States that eats at Hardee's 3 times a week, and the guy who just wants to get a phone so he can actually make sure his family's alive wherever he may live. It is a huge difference. It's
Major.
a huge difference.
Yeah. The big story, I guess, out of Mobile World Congress that's happening in Barcelona is the Samsung Galaxy S5. We got a preview of the phone.
Yeah.
I used to be excited about this line, and now I'm not excited about it anymore. It's the same phone every year with more bloat put on it. And I'm sure people are going to think I'm an idiot for saying that, and that's not true. These are great phones. But that's what I honestly feel like. It's not exciting. The phone doesn't excite me when I see it.
I agree that I agree with you that the phone's not exciting. They have actually calmed down considerably. That S4 event was both ridiculous and overblown. And the phone that they produced had all these stupid features, hand waving and blah, 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 whatever. It was everything but the kitchen sink. The funny thing is Samsung has kind of responded to the criticism, and this phone just has a couple of improvements. They're very easily stated. It looks to me like they're calming it down. And so between my wife's positive experience with her Note 2, which is not the most recent Note, and the fact that, let's face it, I mean, Samsung is the biggest smartphone maker in the world, period. So I'll probably pick one of these up and review it and whatnot, just to kind of try to understand the difference between like a Samsung flavor of Android versus like the Google Play experience, or Nexus experience or whatever.
I'm sure you're going to be able to get this with the Nexus experience, right?
Yeah,
because they're doing it with the S4.
Yeah, but when you do that, you pay full price, right? So I bet if you were to go to, play.google.com and look at the S4, it's probably like $600 or something, some crazy.
That's weird. Why would you get the S4 over the Nexus 5?
I wouldn't, and I didn't, and so I don't.
Why would anybody? I mean, I'm just curious. Like, if you're getting the Google experience, right? Like the pure vanilla Nexus experience, why would you do that?
If you were doing that, you wouldn't. But most people don't do that, right? That's why you don't see. Have you ever seen a Nexus phone in the world? I mean, they're not out there, but like those Samsung phones are everywhere.
Yeah, like 3 people. So some of the specs, it's going to have a Snapdragon 800 processor, which is what I have in my LG piece of garbage here. 2 gig of RAM, 5.1-inch display, Full HD, 1920 by 1080, 1080p display, adaptive AMOLED display, 16 megapixel camera compared to the 13 megapixel. Anything else? It's going to have it's going to have a heartbeat sensor next to the flash. Yeah.
They're doing a lot of the health type stuff, which is a big thing on phones these days, not just on Android, but we have that on Windows Phone too, and Apple's reportedly working on stuff in that category. There's a new generation of those Google Gear watches, and also a Google Gear, like a health strap type of thing, which I think is interesting. It has like a fingerprint sensor.
I actually like this.
I do too.
Do you see the one on the screen?
Yeah.
I think that's what they should have put out.
I use a Fitbit now, and of course I'm using the one they just recalled, although I actually love this thing. The Fitbit does not have a heartbeat monitor in it, which I don't actually care that much about. But what it does have is like a sleep monitor, which I use every night, and I'm kind of compulsive about checking. Like, I actually really like the sleep monitoring feature. I don't believe that's part of the S Health stuff, but I'll look at that. That kind of accessory I think is useful and interesting. So, and I think would be so to many people. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool, but I mean, nothing.
It doesn't look great, right? It's not attractive looking. It doesn't have like a high quality metal construction. It's still like a plastic snap off thing.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't look great at all.
There's one thing you can do with the Samsungs that I really like. They have those covers, right, that have like a window in them, which is neat. And they'll have that for this one. I know with the Note 3, not so much with the Note 2. When you can get a cover for it, and it replaces the back panel. You can get like a leather kind of a cover, which I think is actually kind of a neat thing. Like it replaces the plastic back panel with like a leather cover. I think that's kind of cool. But yeah, it's got this ugly square camera bump. It's almost a throwback looking thing. It's really not that attractive. But
I have to tell you, this is one of those things where I'm just so turned off by the phone market right now, and I think I am going to go get the Icon. I'm actually getting I'm in the good graces of AT&T again, so they're sending me a couple phones to use for a while. So I told them it's a long-term thing, so I'm gonna be using Windows Phone for a while. But for me, the main priority with my phone is obviously the information that I'm getting, but it's the camera. The camera goes, like, that's what I want. And I'm just tired of these Android phones coming out with 40 megapixel cameras, and they're all awful.
I could get used to Android if the camera was just like half as good as what I get on the Lumia 1020, you know.
I mean, it's not even, it's nowhere near it.
I took the 1520 out every day and took pictures with that. That's got the same camera that's in the Icon, and it's beautiful, you know. And people commented on it. It was funny, like that. You know, we went snowmobiling. The guy who took us out took a photo of the family, and he was like, "Wow," he goes, "The screen is awesome. You can see it in the sun." He's like, "I just used that woman's iPhone over there. I had to like put it under a blanket so I could see the screen." And you know, you can see it. It's like humongous. And I'm like, "Yeah." And these phones are great. Nobody knows about them.
No one has a clue what this is.
They're really good. Yeah.
Did you get? Is that one of those European phones, Paul?
Yeah. Did you get? Is that a Euro phone?
Oh God, the '90s, the late '90s, early 2000s, when the Greek kid would come with like this crazy tiny phone, and he bought it in Europe for like $4.
Yep.
So Netflix, I want to talk about this. Netflix is going to be paying Comcast for better streaming. This has been the thing that people that have been defending net neutrality and defending the internet have been screaming about, how this is going to be the beginning of the end of net neutrality and the open internet.
Oh, I wrote an article about that, and people said this is never going to happen. And then here we are a week later.
You know,
we can pay more to get a faster. That's nice. So
Netflix is in agreement with Comcast, which is about to go. I think it's like 5 days away or a couple days away from their possible buyout, with Time Warner being in front of the Senate to see what's going to happen with that.
Yeah,
so
that's
good,
isn't it?
Yeah, fascinating.
And apparently AT&T is looking at signing a similar deal with these guys.
AT&T and Verizon.
So
Verizon as well.
Yeah, we don't need net neutrality. But by the way, what was happening before, I guess what's still happening now, is that Comcast was specifically rerouting Netflix traffic in a ponderous route through the internet so that it would be slower for the people that were their common customers. Yeah.
On purpose.
Nice.
On purpose.
Yep, on purpose.
It has nothing to do with upgrading hardware. So I was reading the article, and they're saying, well, the reason why we need Netflix to do this is so we could upgrade our hardware, so we could serve, you know, the end user. Everyone's going to be happy now, because you're going to be able to watch your Netflix at a higher speed.
I hate every single one of these companies. I hate them all.
It's unbelievable.
This doesn't make me happy.
This is what happens
when you don't have regulations.
Is this the beginning of the end? That's.
It could just be the beginning of everyone finally complaining and putting a stop to this stupidity. But I don't know. I can't say that it's the beginning of the end. But this is why people want net neutrality.
It's kind of like extortion. That's what Kenny said. Kenny says, I think it's more like racketeering, where I come to you and I'm like, hey, Paul, nice laundromat here. It'll be a shame if someone breaks your windows.
Yeah,
This is a tough neighborhood.
Yeah.
You come the next day, but we could protect that. We could fix that. Yep. Apparently, they're routing it through Mongolia, according to Nikki in our chat room. But do you think we're going to see this with more companies now? Because Netflix is the big one. Netflix and YouTube, pretty much in peak hours, take 50% of the world's, or the U.S. of the study I was reading. Pretty much 50% of all the bandwidth being used is Netflix and YouTube. Right. Are they going to go to Google and say, hey, we're going to do the same for you?
Well, Google, Google's a funny company, right? So Google is building like fiber optic networks, or whatever you call it. It's fiber optic networks, right? Fiber networks in various cities around the United States. And their response is going to be like, we're not going to pay you, but we're going to spend exponentially more money to
do it ourselves.
Put it in our own networks. Screw you. I don't know. It's such a strange. It's bizarre. I don't know.
It is bizarre. And, the head of the FCC, Wheeler, was a cable company lobbyist for many years. I think it's interesting now that he's saying, well, no,
right.
we're going to do a case-by-case basis here. And if we feel that it's threatening the openness of the internet, that's when we're going to rule on it. But I think these companies should do whatever they want. It's not our business. But he was a lobbyist for the cable companies.
Sure.
A little bit of a conflict of interest there, in my opinion.
Only if he still has a relationship in that way. I mean, I think people who work in that kind of business, it's like lawyers. You could be a defense attorney, or you could work for the prosecuting attorney or whatever. I mean, they kind of move around sometimes too.
I just think it's amazing that this is the argument that's been taking place, and now who else is going to be affected? How about a smaller company, not Netflix, but necessarily a half the size of Netflix?
That's the issue. So Netflix has a lot of money.
They can afford this.
They can pay this, and that's the thing. There could be some. The issue here is the stifling of innovation. There could be a mom and pop outfit or a guy in his parents' basement who has come up with this streaming technology that makes this superfluous, and he can start his own service. Except that he can't because they'll block him from having open access to the internet, because that's what companies like Comcast and Verizon do. So.
And they're all doing it. Every one of them are doing it. It's not just one. They're all doing it.
That's why I literally wrote the net neutrality issue is about creating or not creating an internet of haves and have-nots. The haves are the people who have the money and they can afford it, and it's fine. And that keeps the status quo. It doesn't allow innovative new services to appear. The have-nots are the ones who are starting out that want to disrupt things. If you artificially make it really difficult for them to do so, everything remains the same.
I guess the way that they see it is that, well, if you're a have-not, then you're not on our radar yet, so it's fine.
Well, it's hard, when you're a giant company that has a vested interest in the status quo to see the next big thing. You don't want the next big thing. You want the thing you already have that's pretty big to continue. You don't want it to be threatened by something new. Comcast and Verizon and all these companies are worried about being dumb pipes. They don't want you to pay some relatively minimal fee every month and then access entertainment services from someone else. They want you to get yours. By the way, I should tell you a story.
Please tell me.
We switched from Fios to Comcast, remember? Yeah. And the guy, it was interesting. The guy who sold us this was an awesome salesman, right? He was one of those, he would like a wheeler dealer type guy, and he talked really fast. We get this, and all this stuff. And he was really good. He could speak right off the top of his head about all the stuff that they had. But one of the things he said kind of stuck in the back of my head. I didn't quite understand it. He kept repeating this. He said, we have this service. I don't remember the name of it. It's part of the on-demand baloney that they give you. He goes, everyone says it's just like Netflix. I don't know. I don't really use Netflix. But he said, everyone says it's just like Netflix. But you pay what, $10 a month for Netflix? This thing comes free with Comcast. And all these people tell me, it was always like third-hand stories.
Yeah.
Once they get Comcast, they don't need Netflix anymore because we get this free thing, and it's just as good as Netflix. So the other morning when this Comcast stuff came out, I was, I'm reading the paper with my wife in the morning, and I'm like, you know what? Right, remember that guy who sold us the thing? This is what he was talking about. It was because they were blocking Netflix. And so the real story was people would switch to Comcast, and they'd be like, hey, my Netflix doesn't work anymore. Supposedly this is the same internet speed as Fios.
Yeah.
But when I use Netflix, the quality is garbage. It keeps getting interrupted and everything. And so they have this other thing where they're like, oh no, so what we're going to do is we're going to proactively tell people, you're not even going to want Netflix anymore because we have this other thing that's better. And of course, they're not blocking their own thing. Comes back full speed, And I don't know that anyone was ever fooled by that, but
I think that's
what it was. I think it was a baloney sales job, and it was because they were artificially
rerouting
the quality of Netflix.
I'll tell you, John, our editor, he has Netflix, and I have this conversation with him all the time. Stop beeping at me. It's enough. I won't talk about Comcast
we get it.
anymore.
Your battery's dead.
I know, Verizon, you're the best. I won't mention the other ones. But I was talking to him, and he's like, I'm going to cancel my Netflix subscription. And I said, why? And he goes, I can't watch anything. Yeah. Literally, it buffers. It's in low res. It is off. I'm like, you're watching on like a wireless thing? He's like, Andrew, it doesn't even matter. I could connect it to the router. I could go directly into the modem. It does not matter. I could barely watch anything with Comcast. You know what? This is probably why.
It's amazing.
They're making it go through a ton more hops. They're routing it in a weird way. And then at the end, it's crappy service. Now it makes sense.
Well,
now, have they?
I guess I'm all set. I'm on Comcast. What could go wrong
now? Have they
Well,
flipped
except
the
that
switch?
next year when the price goes up or whatever, I'll be jumping right back to wireless.
Have they made a difference now? Like, is there a difference in service? Have they already started this change in the way that they're routing the video?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't know. By the way, I've certainly noticed some Netflix issues. I mean, it seems like a lot of it. I have different, like, our main Roku box is out in the den, and in my home, in the office here where I have the machine, I have another TV, my Google TV, right? So I use that with the previous gen Roku box. But I'll get on there some days. You want to run on the elliptical for 30 minutes. You want to watch part of a movie or TV show, whatever it is, and you fire the thing up and it doesn't connect, and so you're starting.
Yeah.
And you're like, come on, I really want this to start. And then sometimes I'll do this thing where I'm like, okay, so I don't want to get into this silliness. I'll start the thing playing, and it will come up, and then I'll pause it, and then I'll finally get going, and then it craps out after. It's like, seriously, I just want to do these two things at the same time. Is that too much to ask? Yeah.
Now the other thing, we're talking about Netflix, but how about gaming? How about Xbox services? Xbox Live.
Yeah. I mean,
that's another.
Actually, I have noticed the difference there, but I attribute this to be related to the upload speed, which is a lot slower on Comcast than it was on Fios. I don't think that would impact Netflix, right? Because Netflix is pretty much just
it's all download, yeah,
streaming to you. Yeah,
it's interesting. I mean, it's an interesting time where we're going to start seeing a shift in the way that these things are being handled. I for one do not like that they're doing this. I've been saying that they've been doing this for years, and nobody's been talking about it. I'm convinced that they did this to me for a long time. Like, I can't do FTP.
Yeah.
They throttle my FTP. They know what I'm doing. They know what the packets are.
Right.
Packets are not packets to these people. They know everything.
Right. I am sure they do. Positive.
Before we wrap up, a couple things. Major shakeup at Microsoft. More moves happening. Elop is now to lead the will lead the hardware division. Julie Larson Green is leaving devices business. Microsoft Devices business.
And, it's Devices and Studios is the official name.
Okay.
It's hardware devices, Xbox, Surface, the hardware accessories, mice and keyboards. And then the studios part is games. And so Microsoft has Microsoft Games, but they have other game studios, and they fall under this.
Have they announced who's taken her place?
Well, it's kind of a weird deal. So when they announced the reorg, I don't remember the timing of it anymore, but either they knew this up front or it was announced later, but Microsoft was going to buy Nokia. So the deal was always like, well, Julie Larson Green is going to run this division, group, whatever they call it now. But when Stephen Elop comes as part of Nokia, he's going to run the division, and she'll report to him. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, you get to run this division for a little while, and then you're going to get demoted when the man shows up. That's kind of a tough thing to say to somebody. And so I always kind of wondered if she wouldn't be a kind of a short timer in there. And so she's exiting to go off to what I would personally call Microsoft's version of Siberia, which is Bing and these online services. Although that's probably not fair anymore, because it appears that what she's working in is very kind of skunkworks-ish. There's stuff going on there where they're doing like cross-product user experience work. I think I've heard from some people that there's going to be attempts to make more consistency between things. So if you're using Outlook.com or Outlook on the client or OneDrive up here or OneDrive down here, these things will all look and work more alike than they do now. And I think that's part of what she's going to be working on. So,
is this a good move or?
I don't know.
She wasn't there too long, so.
The problem is, she was really steady for a long time. She was in Office with Sinofsky for a long time. She was in Windows with Sinofsky for 6 years. And when Sinofsky left, her and Tammy Reller temporarily, as it turned out, and that doesn't surprise me, but they got kind of a co-ownership of the Windows group. When Microsoft reorged, she moved into her current position, Devices and Studios, and now she's moving over to this kind of vague online services thing. So in the span of 15 months, she's had 3 different jobs at Microsoft, whereas she was very steady in a single place before that. So maybe it's just part of all the craziness that's going on there. I think the notable thing about this is that everyone who was close to Sinofsky has been scattered to the winds. Yeah, so they're either gone from the company or they're in far off kind of parts.
The Siberia Microsoft. What is a Siberia Microsoft? It's Bing?
Bing, yeah.
So sad.
Yep.
So sad.
Well, when by the way, before we knew what Windows Phone was, I remember a bunch of the Windows guys went over to Windows Mobile. And I remember I had a bunch of friends on Windows, under Jim Alchin, who all went to like Windows Mobile. They were really working on Windows Phone, but we didn't know that then. And I remember I had this conversation with several of these guys where I was like, so are you getting, punished for something? I mean, what, what is it? Like, why would they send you to Windows Mobile?
I imagine like for lunchtime, they just bring them a tray of water and bread.
Yeah.
Here you
exactly.
go. Lock the door.
Right. It's under the door. Yeah. Anything flat.
We have an
update. They said a couple of those guys would say, no, you don't get it. We're doing something really cool. It's going to be good. And I was like, okay, but it's, so this thing could be like that. You never know.
So we're approaching the end of the show, but we do have a couple of announcements. Paul and I will be doing a Patreon campaign. We're launching it next week. We had a big meeting today, Paul. Big meeting.
It was very corporate.
It was. We were very, very to the point. This is what we need to do. What do you think? This is what I think. We're going to be doing a Patreon campaign. For people who don't know what Patreon is, you guys could fund the show. And for every level of funding, there's a bonus. Like if we hit X amount, we will not have ads on the live player. If we hit another amount, we won't have live reads at all. I mean, I think we said we're going to keep Audible because we actually enjoy that portion. But we're going to have the audience fund what we are doing. And then there's going to be a lot of extras. Like we're going to have bonus shows. So if you want to fund it, you get access to the bonus show. At the end of the show, we'll record like a half hour of a bonus material and put that out on a podcast, and you guys could get it like the following day. There's a lot of cool stuff we're planning on doing. Next week, we're launching it. Now, here's the thing. You don't have I haven't set the amount yet, but it could be anywhere from, 50 cents a show to whatever you want to give. That's how we're figuring it out because, we have a great audience. We want to continue growing the show. We want to do a lot of cool stuff, but it's kind of hard to do it with limited funds coming in. So this is how we're going to make it up. You guys dictate how much money we make. You guys dictate how much money you want to give. If you want to give $1, you give $1. If you want to give $20, you know what? I will meet you in person. No, I probably won't, but I'll send you a nice...
You never know.
You never know. I will send you a nice letter if that's the case. But we're going to launch it next week. I'm going to have more information about it next week. I know a lot of people have been pretty receptive to the idea of us doing this, and they want to see the show grow. So we're going to be setting that up next week. And I think that's it, guys. We're done. Also, hey, guys, subscribe to us. You guys always subscribe to the shows on iTunes, but we're also everywhere else. If you have an Android phone, you could do it on a number of those Android apps out there. We have tons of content available on that. And it helps us out when we have an ad. We say, look at how many people are listening. We're on video podcasts, we're on audio podcast, wherever podcasts are available. Also, winsuperside.com for all things Paul Thurrott. Of course, you could catch him out there. Wednesdays, you're doing a show now. Yeah, Wednesdays at 2 p.m. East. Windows Weekly. And anything else? The book. Right. The book, Paul. Tell people about the book.
So I've been writing a Windows 8.1 book with Rafael Rivera, and actually, as of right now, it's almost complete. It's all the chapters are there. There's some front matter that needs to be fixed. We need to go through it and make sure we didn't miss anything or screw anything up or make things inconsistent. But it's in kind of a rough first draft form, I would say. So it's about 565 pages. It's available for $2 if you want it in PDF or MOBI or EPUB format, and hopefully in the next 30, 45 days, something in there, we'll get it up on Amazon Kindle and Barnes & Noble Nook too. So.
Very, very cool. All right, guys, that's it for this week. You can send me an email at andrew@gfknetwork.com. You could find Paul on Twitter @TheRot. I'm also on Twitter @AndrewZarian. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter as well. We have a Facebook page for What the Tech. You can find us on Facebook as well. And we'll see you all next week. Good night, everybody.